We live in a wild time where some states have codified child abuse into their laws. Others are banning that. Idaho has a law to ban child sexual mutilation. And yesterday, the United States Supreme Court said that they can continue to enforce that ban as the case is heard in the court system. And eventually they may decide on the merits. But for now, Idaho can continue to ban child sexual mutilation in their state. Meanwhile, California, which is often one of the craziest places in our entire country, is a sanctuary city, that is a sanctuary state, rather, for child abuse, unfortunately. For more on this, I want to bring in a father now who is right in the middle of it all. You may know his name. He's Jeff Younger, and he's got a son who he's very concerned about. And Jeff, it's so nice to have you on the program. Thank you, sir, for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Jeff, if you could, just kind of give us the shorthand version of your story and what you're going through right now.
Well, my ex-wife started to transition my son to a girl when he was 2 years old. Right before he turned 3 years old, she filed for divorce, forced me out of the house. She began to socially transition him to a girl. If your listeners go out to YouTube and search for Mommy Says I'm a Girl, there's over a billion views on that video. You'll find it on YouTube. And that's me taking my first video and him telling me that his mother was telling him that he was actually a girl. He was quite confused in that video. Then eventually the school began to secretly transition him behind my back, the Capel School District in Texas. I take him to school in boys' clothes, and they would change him into a dress and make him use the girls' restroom. I didn't find that out for almost a year because it turns out in all 50 states in America, parents don't have rights to the psychological and medical records of their kids. I didn't know that. We went to a divorce, and eventually we had a huge trial in 2019. I won 50-50 custody and a check on all medical procedures. The liberal judges in Dallas County, Texas, moved me into another court with a super liberal feminist judge named Mary Brown. I call her Bloody Mary Brown in the 101st District Court. She allowed my ex-wife to move my children to California because I had managed to outlaw transgender mutilation of children in Texas. It took me 6 years, but I finally got the bill through the legislature in Texas. Then California passed transgender kidnapping law, so she moved there under that law and forced me into the California courts. And now she's actually filed to chemically castrate him.
She's trying to chemically castrate your own son.
Yeah, that's in the documents. She's the gender doctor says that my son. Listen to this. Would a 11-year-old boy say this? The gender doctor says that my son said he wants bottom surgery to remove his male organs and that he's scared of going through male puberty. I mean, they're teaching him to say this stuff, right?
And how old is your son now?
He's 11. It started when he was 2, and I've been fighting in court ever since.
So all of his life he's been groomed into believing that he's a girl by his mother.
That's right. What's interesting is the courts took away almost all my parental rights about 2 years ago. Because when my son is with me, he doesn't present as a girl. He only presents as a girl with his mother. So they had to get me out of his life in order to completely transition him to a girl.
So you haven't have you had contact with your son? When was the last time you talked to him?
It's been almost 2.5 years. They gave me supervised visitation, but in order to do the supervised visitation, I have to affirm that my son is a girl, and I won't do that.
That's insanity. So, so now you get updates. How do you find out about your son's well-being or lack thereof?
She has actually, under Texas law, if you're a joint managing conservator, which I am, it's illegal to not for a judge not to give me notification requirements. But the judge specifically said she doesn't have to notify me of their school, medical, or anything. So I never get notified. I honestly don't know. I'm going to have to file legal discovery and go through a long, spend tens of thousands of dollars to get that information.
You know at this moment, though, that they haven't begun putting chemicals into your boy, or do you not know his status?
I don't know that. I do not know that. In fact, I suspect that even though my ex-wife has been under a permanent injunction not to do any medical or chemical procedures, my gut feeling is that she has done that.
The injunction imposed by whom? Texas?
That was imposed by a Texas court in a jury trial. We're the only state in the union that has jury trials in divorces. And that was imposed by the judge in the jury trial in order to make sure that I had a final check on all medical procedures so that wouldn't happen. So she's filing in California courts to lift that injunction and chemically castrate him.
And California, meanwhile, as I mentioned at the outset, has its own kind of sanctuary law for child abuse that says you can abuse the kids in this state, and we'll basically ignore the commands of any other state when it comes to these issues, right?
That's right. And even worse, when children become 12, they can consent for themselves to these procedures, even if the parents don't want them to. The state will allow them to go to a halfway house and will not inform the parents where the children are. I mean, it's literally a kidnapping bill. I tell all conservative parents to never take your children to California. You may not see them again.
I imagine somebody along the way has warned you what it would mean if you actually tried to rescue your child from this.
Yes. And the question is, where would you go if you rescued them, right? I mean, we don't have any conservative states that have done similar sanctuary bills for children to avoid these mutilations. This is one of the problems that we have is our conservative legislators are just not as aggressive as the left. You know, the left is saying that if you don't do these gender procedures, you're a child abuser, but I can't get the sexual mutilation and chemical castration of children classified as child abuse in Texas, for God's sakes.
What will happen to your boy? What will happen to your boy if his mother brings him down this medical path? What are the consequences here?
The first thing that will happen is that they will administer puberty blockers. Those puberty blockers, if taken long enough, will cause him to become infertile. His penis and testicles will not grow, so he will have the rest of his life. He will have a toddler's penis and testicles. He will not have a normal sexual functioning, and eventually he will go on to cross-sex hormones, which will permanently sterilize him. Of the people that go into cross-sex hormones, virtually 100% go on to actually have their genitals removed in surgeries.
All of the data show that this is a complete disaster for children, especially. In fact, the UK just came out with the results of a multi-year study, which I guarantee you have more knowledge than I do of it, given the particular interest you have in this subject, obviously.
Yeah.
But they concluded that this is a disaster. This should not be done to kids.
No, it should not be done to kids. And let me tell you, this is the simple way to understand it. The cure for gender dysphoria is puberty. Because puberty is precisely the process by which it's a psychological, social, and physiological process by which children come to grips with their sexual role in society. They block puberty precisely in order to block the cure for gender dysphoria so that it persists permanently. And that's exactly what happens with these children. It's not that the treatments are ineffective. They are definitely ineffective, but they actually cause gender dysphoria to be permanent for the rest of the child's life.
Well, that's one of the most insightful and succinct descriptions I've heard ever on this subject, because you think about like anybody, all of us in our going through puberty, it's an awkward phase. You're figuring things out. There's clearly a psychological component to it, but that's sort of the point. That's the human body.
Yeah, that's 99.9% of the kids that if you just do watchful waiting, they just grow out of it.
Yeah. So from the age of 2, I mean, what always struck me about your story is just how early it was that, as you put it, and as was demonstrated in that viral video, that your ex-wife put into your son's head this idea that his body was a mistake. I don't even really know what to ask you other than like, how could that happen? What was that like to see him growing up under that impression?
It was really scary to me. You can hear the tremors in my voice when you listen to that video. Mommy says I'm a girl.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you how I approached it, and this is probably the best way to think about it. I was once asked on the stand what it was like watching this happen to your son, and I said, here's what it's like. It's like sitting in a chair with a judge watching you, and your child is being sexually abused right in front of you. And if you get angry or act out in any way, you'll lose your children. You have to be the calm one while the other one abuses your child. That's what it's like. And my son, what's interesting about him, because he never presented as a girl with me, I just tried to show him how great it is to be a man. My son is an excellent boxer. I mean, he's like in the 5th standard deviation of boxing. at his age right now, he could probably be, in contention for, youth boxing in his state. Like, he's that good.
Wow.
We showed him how to box. We got him into wrestling. His brother is a wrestler, not a boxer. So you can imagine how much fun we had around the house with a skin-move boxer and a wrestler. We played football. We went hunting. And I just showed him how great it was to be a man. And he was really responding to that. And then he told the court-appointed counselor here in Texas, her name is Susan Fletcher, and he told her that he didn't want to be a girl and that he wants to be a boy, and even recorded himself telling her because she wasn't listening to him. And the counselor actually initiated a CPS investigation against me for forcing him to say he wants to be a boy.
He thought at a young age, he decided to record himself talking to this counselor to make sure that it was captured?
Yeah, he asked for a watch. He wanted an Apple Watch, and I was like wondering what's going on. And finally he said, like, look, I'm telling her these things, but she never responds to me.
Yeah.
And so when he actually recorded himself saying, I want to be a boy, and then she saw she was being recorded because he didn't hide it, she initiated a CPS investigation against me.
So do you get the impression that he would adopt this framing, that in fact that he was actually a girl, around his mother, because what was the incentive for him? Was he trying to appeal to her sensibilities? Was he scared of her? What was the motivation there?
So both of my sons love their mother, and I want them to love their mother.
Sure.
And I think they need their mother. Even when you have a crazy mother, you still need your mother,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My son learned from an early age, at the age of 2, that his mother would not love him if he wasn't a girl.
So there was a looming threat over him as a result.
Yeah. And his sisters, he has sisters, and they wouldn't love him if he wasn't a girl. So this is how he got love and attention when he was young, and it's just become a habit now.
It is so killer to hear you describe all of this, because I keep thinking, and I think most of our audience is thinking, she's the one who's abusing these children, and you're the one who's blocked from seeing these kids? I mean, are you? Can you not see any of your children?
No, I can't see. I have 2. The daughters are not mine; they're hers. I was a stepfather. I have 2 boys. They're twins. They're not identical. James and Jude. I named them after the boys of Jesus, and I can't see either one of them.
You mentioned partway through this conversation that you are trying to urge conservatives to, first of all, grow a spine, but secondly, to establish a sanctuary to protect kids from these abuses. What other public policy pressure do you think needs to be placed on lawmakers to right this?
So, I'll just be honest with you. I spent 6 years trying to get the Texas legislature to pass a bill banning these procedures.
Yeah.
Texas was actually one of the top states that was doing it. One of the largest gender clinics where they were doing this to kids was actually in Austin, Texas. And it was only like a couple of miles from the Capitol even. So what I found is I was talking to a legislator in North Texas trying to get him to sponsor my bill. And I realized I was trying to convince somebody that cutting the balls off a little boy was wrong. And I just decided I wasn't going to do that anymore. I really think we have to stop asking conservative legislators and trying to convince them to do things. I think we need to start going after their donors. I think we need to start going after their businesses. And I think we need to let people know if they don't do the right thing. I think right now we have to stop thinking about persuasion and start thinking about forcing our elected officials to do our will. And I think this issue shows most clearly, this is the most immoral issue since slavery. And I'm sitting there trying to convince conservatives to pass a bill.
Yeah.
So I think we have to stop thinking about persuasion and start forcing our guys to do it. And we have to be willing to take them out of office and endure some short-term pain if they don't.
All right. Hard to blame you taking that position. Jeff Younger, a Texas father, is right in the middle of all of it right now. Sir, thank you very much for your time today. We'll talk to you again soon, sir.